Hello, today I'm going to see if I can create a cover for my new book using only AI art. Now on the screen you can see my covers for my previous two books, which were drawn for me by a guy whose contact details, or Twitter details rather, I'll put on the screen so that you can go check him out if you want. I was really pleased with what he did. I also had a third piece of art which looks like this done, which I'm less pleased with, not because it's bad art, but just because it didn't quite capture the same colourfulness and energy of my characters that I wanted. What I was looking for before I had that work done was thinking about where I'd like my book, which is a science fiction comedy, to sit in terms of the aesthetics of it. And I'm really keen on the paintings that you used to see on the covers of Astounding magazine and things like that from the 50s, 60s, 70s, the heyday of science fiction, the golden age of science fiction, but also perhaps because of the male-female dynamic in the books, looking at the vintage posters of James Bond, which you can see on the screen at the moment. This as well, this sort of pin-up from the 60s, sort of drawn, but I can't really describe the sort of look of it in a way that sort of captures it, but they're on the screen for you to have a quick look at. And the first thing I did was, okay, I want like two figures running towards me, a male and a female. One's a professor, one's a student. They're running away from perhaps like tentacles of Cthulhu or something like that. So I just put in a prompt along those lines. The prompts that I used will appear on the screen. And you can see that because I've put like vintage poster in, it's bringing up all that text, which is useless to me. So I'm limited to a couple of options. And when I sort of zoom in on them and look at the details on them, I get variations of the original prompt. They're kind of unusable. They're just not very good. There's all sorts of problems with limbs, with hands, with the pose, with the faces, eyes particularly being misshapen, noses are terrible generally. But the results were passable, so I've tried to expand that. I've included the prompt Cthulhu in these ones, which I hadn't in the first ones, and you can see that that's just made a hash of everything. It's just made it look just like it's changed the people to be, which is clearly not what I wanted. And I thought, okay, if I could play with these in Photoshop, but then perhaps I need them on a green screen. So I tried a green screen, that's given me this. I thought, okay, that's not going to work. Give me a white background. That isn't going to work either. But not only that, the characters on the screen don't look like the characters that I want them to look like. Who would I have cast if I was creating a movie based on these characters? And for me, Sexton is a mixture of Roger Moore, a friend of mine, perhaps a little bit of Captain Kirk, but sort of removed from their time a little bit, which if you read the book makes a bit more sense. And for me, that Riley, I mean, she's 18, she's a student in her first year at university. In terms of who she would look like, I picked Lily Collins, but of the look and the generation of the Mortal Engines, which is like 10, 11 years old now. So I put them in, give me those two, and it's given me like initially a photograph. Two of the four are just them, two photos side by side. That's completely out, and then the other two are more usable, but they're not in the style that I really wanted because everything else I've done is cartoons. I can't just use like a photograph. So I've tried them with a couple of artists prompt. Initially I tried a Marvel artist, J. Scott Campbell, and then the second prompt I've tried, because the other two are kind of more of a Japanese style, I've tried a very famous manga artist called Naoki Urasawa. And it's given me, initially, you know, some of these look really quite usable. They look almost exactly what I'm looking for. I particularly like this black and white one, although once you start to look at it, it's like there's all sorts of problems with the poses, with the hands, with the faces, with the... It's just, once you look at it, you go, it's just not usable. So then I thought, right, simplify this, get this down to just the one. And the Roger Moore actually is coming out pretty good. I pretty much like all of the Roger Moores that it's come up with. And then I tried this one on his own, but, you know, count the fingers, I can't use that either. So then I thought, right, I'll try Lily Collins on her own. Didn't really work either. None of these are usable. And so other people using photographs and generating images from them that were really quite good. So I tried this picture of Lily Collins. I tried it, I put in like 60s sci-fi or something along those lines as well. Like I said, the prompts would appear on the screen. And initially go, none of these are good. And then you sort of, maybe that one's passable, try to generate some more along that theme. that was no good either. Then went back to the character, hashtag character on the Discord, saw other people were blending two images. I thought, okay, I'll try that. So I've got this picture out of off the internet of like a gothic outfit, because if you've read the book, then you'll know that Riley's boots are sort of quite important to her. They're like the one thing she really cares about. So I really wanted a pose or a picture of her with the boots in them. But you can see also that what it generated was not useful to me. I put, in terms of prompts, full body, full length, nothing like that gave me anything other than this, at best, sort of 3/4, that sort of down to the upper, just above the knee sort of portrait. However, some of these pictures I'm perfectly happy with. They're perfectly usable to me. But then I tried a prompt running, useless, absolutely awful. Then I've got a manga picture by that artist Naoki Urasawa again, and so tried to use that in the blend, and I've got this again, just awful. None of that's usable at all. And at this point I've gone, well, like that static pose is passable. That's about as good as I'm going to get from it. Let's have a look. Just a background, because when you're trying to do all 3, 4, 5 different elements at once, it's just awful. But the backgrounds, I just did one prompt, came up with these, and I looked at all 4 of those and thought I would use all 4 of those. They're all good and perfectly adequate. The prompt was like dark rocky tunnel with Cthulhu tentacles. I did have a slight problem then that I said dark rocky tunnel infested with Cthulhu tentacles. And Midjourney said to me that infested is a prompt that I'm not allowed to use as a banned term. Why? They banned, first thing I did was like try 60s pinup, and pinup is banned. Why? Most pinups are not nude pictures. They're like, particularly from the 60s, if you're doing 60s pinup, virtually none of them were. They're all of that style that I showed at the start. Besides which, you choose, you're sending your bot away to the internet to search and go, okay, I want pinups. Put your safe search on, and I won't be dealing with not safe for work content, will I? Anyway. The background was great, and I tried to draw Riley over it, and my style of drawing, it just doesn't work for that sort of thing. Plus, it just simply doesn't look professional enough for me to use. That abandoned me drawing it straight away, and I took this element, which was one I thought, yeah, that's fine, I'll use that one. But I needed a Roger Moore in a similar sort of full-length pose, if you like, what this considers a full-length pose. So I asked a full-length pose, and only 1 out of the 4 was really viable, and that's this one, which is fine. So what I've done there is then I've composited them and added the text over the background. Using Photoshop, you can see that the issues with the Photoshop are issues of me not knowing how to use it. That's why you get that little line there. In terms of the style of the book, I think that this image actually works okay. The issues with it are, like there's too many buttons on his shirt. I could probably just take some of those out of Photoshop. I could probably get rid of that line with a little bit of tidying up in Photoshop as well. But generally it shows you that it can be done. It looks okay. I don't really sort of see anyone looking at that going, oh, there's something seriously wrong with that, but perhaps my eyesight is not as good as yours. So if you do see something wrong with it, then by all means put it in the comments. However, that's not the end of the conversation, is it? Because I'll show you my cover again for Sexton, Lovecraft and versus the Zargs. I actually gave that background to the artist, thinking, 1, it'll save you time, and might 2, save me some money. I'll give you the background. It's AI generated background, and he refused to use it. I mean, he's going to anyway, because I'm paying for the background. It's an extra, I don't know, $30 or whatever. But he refused to use it. He said, I won't use AI art, but I will redraw in that style if that's what you want. I said, I think in terms of the background, AI art can't be faulted. You can always find a background in this style that is perfectly reasonable. As people, serious issues there. I mean, I dread to think how many fingers Roger Moore would have on his hand if it wasn't in his pocket. But yeah, the artist drew a background based on what I gave him. But then there's the other issue, isn't it? In that I asked the AI to draw those characters in the style of Naoki Urasawa. Now, I could never ever afford for him to draw for me. As simple as I'm not ever going to be that wealthy, I wouldn't have thought he's extremely successful. When I draw and paint, I paint in a way that was sort of popularised in the 80s by Patrick Nagel. If you look at Marvel 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you can see the progression of people building on the art that's gone before. So is it wrong? If I'd used a more generic prompt like manga style, would that have been better? Would that be more acceptable? I do think that there's a problem, that you can't just go and go, I'm going to use drawn by J. Scott Campbell, drawn by Naoki Urasawa. It's just not right. And the second issue, of course, is that I've asked it to generate an image that looks like Roger Moore. Now, Roger Moore, rest in peace, would be difficult to pay. And I had to pay them for his likeness, then that would cost me an awful lot of money. Is it close enough to him? Is it a tribute? Do you see what I'm saying? There's all sorts of questions on the morality of it that need to be considered. I think that my cover here is perfectly usable. I'm reluctant to actually use it because I've created it using art in the style of and using the likeness of a famous person who's neither of those people are getting any money from me. But I think that it does prove that AI art, an artist of my caliber, if I was making any money off my art, which obviously I don't because I'm not good enough, I would look at that and go, I'm out of business. So it does make making a cover accessible. You don't have to use the prompt Roger Moore. You don't have to use the prompt Naoki Urasawa. You can just use something more generic and remove some of that question mark and create a passable cover quite easily with very rudimentary skills. My photoshopping, one, my copy is at least 10, 12 years old, and two, I never really learned how to use it. So is like the most basic things I can do, and other than that, no, I can't do anything with it. So, and even with that in mind, I have created, well, who created it? Naoki Urasawa, Midjourney, the AI, or me? I think that's a debate that could go on a while. I think it's an interesting cover, I really do, and I think that it looks all right. What do you guys think? I'm really interested on this one because it's such a debate that I've seen on Twitter and on other people's channels. I'm really interested in where people stand on AI art or AI elements in their art. Prompts, draw like, does that matter? Use the likeness of, does that matter? Tell me what you think. I'm interested. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.